We're live. Hi, everyone. Again, from Dr. Cohen's office. It's so nice to connect with you guys, and we hear so many positive comments about these live lectures that Dr. Cohen is doing every week, which, we're very grateful. So, as usual, post your questions. We received some questions over email from some of you, which we will address at the end of this talk. But during the talk, if you have any questions, you can just post in the comment below and we'd be happy to answer and address right away. And today, Dr. Cohen prepared an interesting lecture about our gut and immunity, and will walk us through some very practical tips that we can do at home to sustain ourselves during these interesting times that the whole humanity is going through. So enjoy your evening with us, and for now, we're going to be here every Monday at 7 p.m. And take it away, Dr. Cohen.
Thanks. So thanks for the third lecture. I hope they have given you something of value. We're still working on immunity and trying to make ourselves better resilience to the pathology that's all around us and the stress. So the combination of pathology and stress has really put a lot of pressure on all of us. So how do we manage all that? One of the things is to raise our immunity. Most people don't understand that 80% of all immunity comes from the GI tract, the gut, the small intestine. And so if that's compromised, we're in jeopardy. And what do we need to have a robust immune system? Thank God we have great scientists that are alive today in this day and age, and how much progress we've made. And I've talked about both previous lectures, and we'll go over that again. They've given us the roadmap for immunity. And I extracted that from the Journal of Immunity, the Journal of Cellular Biology. That was about, I think, 3-4 years ago, and it took us on a journey. So let's go over that again. Each one of us, each mammal exactly, is dependent on calcium bicarbonate. Now I got a question somebody sent me. They said, is that similar to sodium bicarbonate? And that's both bicarbonate, but that's not the same thing. It's calcium bicarbonate. And then somebody else said, how much supplement should everybody be taking calcium bicarbonate? Well, everybody needs to ingest calcium bicarbonate or something that converts into calcium bicarbonate. So how do we get that? Traditionally, mankind in primitive times got it from well water. And today, what we do in our office, since it's hard to get enough well water or other waters that take calcium bicarbonate, we use calcium lactate. So calcium lactate takes one enzyme to convert to calcium bicarbonate. Certain researchers have tried to create calcium bicarbonate directly, and that hasn't worked. So it's either in well water or something that easily converts. Now, if you take calcium supplements, they're usually calcium carbonate. So what does that mean? If you want to convert calcium carbonate to bicarbonate, it takes 11 enzymatic steps. So how likely is that happening, especially if we have a compromised GI tract? And most people nowadays have problems with the digestion because we're ingesting food that's not food, that we have no history of eating, and we get distorted biological compromises that put us in jeopardy. So calcium lactate, which are extracted from beets, and you'd have to eat hundreds of beets to get a sufficient amount, it only takes one enzyme to become bicarbonate. So that's one of the key things today, because we need an educated immune system. Now, when you eat the calcium lactate, it has to break down in the gut. You can't make it in your own body. So no, you can't produce it yourself, no matter how healthy you are. And then when it breaks down, in the gut, you need vitamin D. Now, is all vitamin D the same? No, there's at least 20 to 25 kinds of vitamin D. You have to have the right vitamin D. That's important for the integrity of the bone structure, but it's also important for the immune system. So for the immune system, again, I'll repeat it because so many people have asked me, do I need to be taking calcium bicarbonate? Do my kids need to be taking bicarbonate? Every human being on this planet needs bicarbonate. We can't exist without it. We have no defenses. It's like saying to the pathogens, come right in. So when we break down with vitamin D, takes it into the blood, and then you need an old vitamin that a lot of people have forgotten about, and that's vitamin F. And vitamin F takes it from the blood and brings it to the tissues. So what happens then? So let's say you have a pathogen, you have a virus. Let's say you have a bacteria, let's say you're poisoned. It could be multiple things. Your immune cells are traveling through the environment, the milieu, and what are they doing? They're looking for a sign that there's a pathology. So what's the sign? It's the calcium bicarbonate dancing around, sort of like a dance, marking that as a pathology. Now let's say you have no calcium bicarbonate. The immune cells will go right by it and they'll ignore it. It'd be like a policeman walking by a bank being robbed, and instead of coming in there and arresting the bank robbers, he finds somebody that has overtime parking and gives them a parking ticket, ignoring the bank robbers. That's literally what happens. So the mast cells are called mast cells, and macrophages, the large immune cells, if they know which ones to destroy, they'll destroy the pathogen. So this is the basics that we all need today. So when somebody asks me, do my children need that? Obviously, if your children have been healthy and they're young, they don't have a long history of pathogens. Now, one of the things that we've learned during this epidemic is that if you have a history or you have of pathogens and traumas and past diseases and tissue alteration and immune compromises, you're much more vulnerable to the virus. So the first thing you need is for your immune system to recognize what's a pathogen. And that's very, very key. Okay. Now, where is the immune system located mostly? Remember, you swallow the calcium bicarbonate. That's getting digested in your gut. The information is going to go from your gut into the blood and sent throughout the body. So we need that. We have to have that. So what happens if we don't have that? We're not going to recognize what's a pathogen. It's simple. Now, one of the things that I've gotten some very wonderful people write me, and they ask, well, you in your system to potentize the immune system are using echinacea. So I want to put this to rest because it should have been put to rest 25 years ago, and scientifically it was. Echinacea is a plant used by Native Americans. Pharmaceutical companies in America in the late 1800s started using it as a drug. And echinacea has to be in a certain form. What kind of form? It has to have loads and loads of alkemines, which give it this stinging, bitter taste. You feel tingling on the top of your tongue. And if you extract it from the root, it has a profound immuno effect. But it has an immunomodulation. So many people, buy from the stores or from large-scale reputable companies, but who don't really understand echinacea. And it doesn't help that much once you get sick. It modulates the immune system so it can react to a pathogen. There are better herbs, which are part of my program, than echinacea if you do get sick. But it does prevent you or lower the intensity if you're taking the echinacea. So Formula 2, which I formulated probably 25, 30 years ago, with the two different kinds of echinacea, golden seal and elderberry. And people for the last 25 years have been swearing they're not getting sick from it because it's modulating. And if you want the science, the two founders of scientific herbalism are Kerry Bone and Simon Mills. This is the textbook that's used in universities around the world that are teaching medical herbology, which is different than traditional herbology. Medical herbology is using assays with the same as drugs, that measuring the biomarkers, and it's been studied mostly in German universities, some in Swiss universities. What are the components of the herb to make it biologically effective? Some people ask, why do I recommend Formula 2? Because we're walking around polluted. Many of us, unfortunately, are not eating food. We're eating fake food, not just fake news, but fake food. And we're becoming super vulnerable to pathogens. And we need to have our immune system modulated. So anybody that says that the echinacea, well, most echinacea won't do anything because it doesn't have enough alkemines. There's only a few places that have the right echinacea. So, but if you do take an echinacea and if it was really exciting, it doesn't. So a lot of people say, well, you can't with the virus take echinacea because it will excite the immune system, stimulate the immune system. There's nothing, you can read about it, there's a whole chapter on how it doesn't do that. It modulates. So it adjusts so you become more resilient to stress. So I hope that puts to rest, and that's why I've been prescribing for many, many years Formula 2. That's helped so many people. I have one patient who's probably listening for many years, 25 years, and never got the flu when she was getting the flu many times a year, and she swears it's Formula 2. Okay, so what else should we be doing? We spent, in a rush job, I had some of the most brilliant scientists in the world advise me and support in my office to come up with viral defense. I wasn't prepared for how much demand there was and how difficult it was to get the components. So we have 5 herbs in viral defense we talked about before, and I've been told that we will have more coming in approximately a week, right? Couple of weeks? I wish we could...
It's okay, it's coming.
Yeah, but there's so many people I'm afraid are going to get sick when the curve goes high. So So that's so important. We found also, because that's the ACE inhibitors and stuff, that's where the virus seems to enter the lungs, and when it enters the lungs, that's where it infects the lungs. And the viral defense was manufactured and put together to prevent the virus to go into the lungs. Okay, now let's go over a few things that I always tell patients. I even tell patients today, and I am seeing people virtually, patients. What do we do for the gut? That's 80% of our immune system. Well, I hope you like apples, because you need organic apples. It's called British stewed apples. And all of us have heard of an apple a day makes the doctor go away, but it's actually a 2 apples. So it doesn't matter which kind of organic apples. Chop them up, dice them. Now add cinnamon. If you really want to be really a superstar, add cinnamon vera, if you can find that. But if you can't, just use cinnamon or different kinds of cinnamon. You can cook them with raisins. Do not use commercial sugar. And that's pretty simple. We don't need a cascade or a storm of inflammation. We need at this time to stay away from sugar. So you chop them up in a big pot. You don't want to be cooking them every day. And we want 3 cups a day, or 3 servings. And you cook them until the skin of the apples becomes a bit shiny and the skin gets a little loose. Because what's the magic formula? It's apple pectin. But for some reason, if you go into the store and buy apple pectin, it doesn't work. So if you have a gut problem, and many people are thinking getting diagnosed with leaky gut as they get under stress, or they get poisoned, or they've been sick. I personally don't like the word leaky gut, because I think that if you really had a leaky gut, you'd die. But you really do have a permeable gut. And so stuff that should be coming out with your bowel movements gets through the tight junctions that are separating themselves and producing oculinin and zonulin, trying to cover up the porous part of the gut lining, the epithelial cells. And when that happens, which we can measure, there's laboratories that do measure that, we get a hyperpermeable gut. Most common thing I see is people coming in with long-time sinus problems. So where does the sinus problems, they get the sinus problems? And I tell them it's coming from the gut. It's going out of the gut lining. It's creating pathological bacteria called lipopolysaccharides that go on the lining. And it's literally getting into the blood, some of it going to the liver through the portal vein, and some of it going up into the lungs. And this is the last thing we need now. Now there are 3 barrier systems in the body. The first one is the gut, where things can literally come out of the gut that shouldn't come out of the gut, that are actually poisonous. And then there's the lungs, and we all know about that. You don't want to have a permeable lungs with a very potent virus floating around wanting to get in there through the angiotensin receptors. So we want to prevent that. And then there's the brain, the blood-brain barrier. Those are the 3 areas of the body that are permeable. Now, a lot of people thinking they're getting aging and they're forgetting losing their memory. They're forgetting to do things that are been part of their everyday life. It really means what's happening, and this is research that was done by one of the great scientists of our times, Michael Schwartz, Weizmann Institute, which she found that it can come from our thymuses, which are over here, what we call the T4 regulatory cells, and they can migrate into the brain, not necessarily through the blood-brain barrier, which is everything we thought about, but through what's called the choroid plexus. And having those cells in the brain will diminish your ability to have optimum cognition, calculation, focus, purpose, and ability to learn things. But most important, where most of us suffer from, especially now, we're all wondering, is this virus going to get us? We're all working with a high degree of stress. So by treating the thymus and the immune system, which is secondary, and individualizing it, we can actually lower the migration of the T4 regulatory cells. And I learned that again from Michael Schwartz. Okay, what's another thing that we can do? If you want a really robust immune cell, you need to treat the gut. Old method that's been used for centuries, particularly in Europe, is castor oil packs. And if anybody knows what castor oil, the botanical name is Palma Christi, the palm of Christ. And I've used castor oil packs for all my career on everything from tumors to cancers to you name it. People that have degenerative joints, people thinking they have arthritis. But the same thing we can do for our immune system. We want to heal that GI tract. So the best place to buy the castor oil, in fact the only place that I recommend to buy it from, is heritagestore.com. heritagestore.com, and buy their castor oil. You can buy the whole pack from them, or you can save some money and just buy the oil from them. And buy the components are flannel or wool. You want to make that moist. And then the next thing you want to do is have a heating device. So a battery operated heating pad with some plastic, just so you don't get the heating pad full of oil over that. And back in, I'm trying to think, it was probably in the late 70s, early 80s, I used to use castor oil. I had a reputation when I had a practice in San Francisco for rehabilitating elderly people that were in wheelchairs because their knees, and they weren't doing many knee replacements yet. And the majority of them were walking out of a wheelchair in 3 to 6 months by putting that on 6 to 8 hours a night. So in other words, going to bed with it. And I had a big practice for that. So we can do the same thing with the gut. And we can do the same thing with the immune system, with the thymus. So those are the keys. And those are the things that you can do on your own. Any questions?
Yes, so Marion asked if they can sweeten the apples with Manuka honey, the applesauce.
For her, because she's so sweet as it is. So we don't need to make her sweet. No, of course you can.
You can? All right.
That's actually a good idea.
All right.
Can I steal it?
Yeah, I'll ask her.
Okay.
Then the other question was, can we use potassium permanganate to wash vegetables and fruits? would that clean the virus?
What cleans the virus is soap and water.
Regular hand soap?
That's better than anything else. Better than alcohol, better than anything. And yeah, so I recommend for 40 seconds.
Okay, just soak it in the soap.
Soap and water.
Alan is asking, should we change our clothes when we get home from outside, such as after grocery shopping?
Actually, Alan, I don't do it, so I can't tell you to do it, but you should do it.
Okay.
If you really have the time and effort and you have a good washing machine, as many times you wash it, the better off you would be. And especially if you're around any metal or plastic. It can live quite a bit on the plastic, and it can live on metals.
Plastic bags or plastic?
Yeah, just regular plastic bags. There's controversy how long it lives, but it definitely can live for a while.
Okay. What surfaces shall we clean at home every day?
Anything that you put your hands on, you should wipe it off. And again, the best thing is soap and water.
Okay.
You don't need all this. You don't want antibacterial soap. Does anybody understand that? We have a biome, just like we have in our gut, we have a biome on our skin that protects us. Those are the bacteria that live on our skin. Why would we want to kill them when they're what's protecting us? Makes no sense.
So he's saying that the garbage room is shared in the basement. Should we be wearing masks when we're going there, given that there could be bio-waste garbage with potential virus?
I don't know if the masks protect you that much. It protects others. If you have the virus and you're wearing a mask, you're protecting the people around you. So unless everybody's wearing a mask that potentially has the virus, it's not necessarily going to protect you.
And he's saying, should we turn the humidifiers on?
Yes.
Is that a helpful
It is a helpful
tool? All right. And the other one that I have found that my colleagues are much more anxious and hard to deal with because of working from home and the stress of coronavirus. Do you have any advice how to deal with those anxious colleagues?
Absolutely. When people are anxious, they're afraid of their own survival. That's what anxiety is. Anxiety is a mechanism that's pre-programmed into us for us to survive, so we can defend ourselves and we can be aware of when it's not safe. So how do we deal with it on a human basis today is one of the major things is compassion. And most people, compassion is being listened to and just repeated what they're afraid of. I mean, people are afraid of their jobs, their homes, their families, coming down with this bad disease. And nobody's immune. Even young, healthy people can get it. And if you're over 60, you're very vulnerable. You have to be very, very careful. And other countries that we've been studying are much more stricter than we are. You know, some countries, they're not letting people walk more than around the block. And that's accurate. You have an immune system that has no knowledge of what this is. This never existed before in history. We've had relatives of this virus, but not quite the same virus. And this responds very easily, though the good news is it's a fragile virus. So if you're doing everything you are to protect yourself and you're not making any silly mistakes by going out in public and ignoring this and not watching what you're touching, because you have a good chance of not getting the virus, in my opinion.
All right, I think that's it. All the questions that have been addressed. Any final words?
Final words. Do everybody a favor by sit quietly. Let's actually do it a little bit, and let's practice quiescence. of quieting the mind and quieting ourselves, and also probably quieting the world around us. Take your natural medicines, but sit and stare at some space, not closing your eyes completely, keeping them half closed, and just watching your thoughts, and making sure that you're not creating a reality that's going to rob us of the vibrancy and the resilience that we need for our lives. So just watch it without needing to change anything. No need to understand something. No need to prevent something. Just become the observer. And what happens when we become the observer? We activate all our defenses. We are designed to become observers. We're not designed to become reactors, observers. So just find a place and just observe, watching your breath go in and out. And as the breath goes in, allow the light all around you to cleanse you. Take a few moments, and I'll join you shortly. Nothing to understand, nothing to learn. Just see things for what they are, and don't allow your fear to create something that isn't. All of you have tremendous tools. So many of you I know personally. I know your capabilities. I know your heart. I know your compassion. Those are very strong tools. Make sure all the people you know that you love are aware that you are aware of them as very unique, special people. Let your family know how precious you are, and they are to you. Take a few moments and visualize that. Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a deep breath, open your eyes, and realize that it is a time of opportunity and growth. And we can convert our fears and our vulnerabilities into being new, capable, very powerful leaders to help those that are vulnerable around us. Remember, you're not alone. And this will be an opportunity to be more than what you thought you were. If there's no other questions or no other needs, I'll be happy to answer them. And then we can convene again next week.
All right, everyone, thank you for watching and thank you for being with us. As you all know, we are here to serve you guys. We are going high tech here. Dr. Cohen will be offering sessions via Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime starting this week, actually. So you can have the convenience of your home and access to Dr. Cohen. Please be patient with Viral Defense. We have all of you on the list, whomever emailed us and expressed an interest in the products and Formula 2 at the same time. As soon as we get it, we'll get in touch with you and ship it out to you as soon as possible. Again, thank you so much, and we will see you next week on Monday at 7 p.m. If you have the theme that you would like to explore more with Dr. Cohen, please email it to us. If not, we'll come up with something immunity-based, and it will be, as always, interesting and intriguing and very valuable. Thank you. Good night, everyone, and wish you stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.